Canadian Broadcasting Corporation presents The Adventures of Ookpik, the Arctic Owl.
Ookpik, Ookpik, Ookpik the Arctic Owl. In the land of the singing wind, in the place of the sparkling snow, a feathered friend of all the north would travel to and fro. Ookpik, Ookpik, Ookpik the Arctic Owl. An Arctic owl is very wise. He stands so small but his head is large. He looks at you with his big round eyes. He'd like to be your friend. Ookpik, Ookpik, the Arctic Owl.
When Ookpik arrived at the tent village, he found it deserted. There could only be one reason for this. The men, women, and children, even the dogs, had all gone to the fishing weir. So he made his way there to see what was happening. It was the time of year when the echolot, the Arctic char with the red, flashing undersides, were returning in great numbers to pass through the fishing weir, a rather primitive form of fish trap. The weir is a carefully prepared cross-section of the river where the fish are, for a time, held back from going upstream to the lakes where they spend the winter. Guided by the sound of happy voices, Ookpik flew to the river mouth. In the pool, which had become a trap, men were wading around, using their long fish spears. These are simple but very efficient weapons, at the end of which are two flexible bones with barbs. The bones encircle the backs of the fish, while the barbs make sure the fish will not get away. There was much shouting and laughter as the fish after fish were tossed on the riverbank by the spear-wielding fishermen. As the flapping fish landed on the riverbank, it was amusing to watch the antics of the pups who jumped around and tried to seize them. Children carried the fish to the women who split them down the back and cleaned them. They were then hung up to dry in the sun and wind. This is always a very happy time because everyone is busy and food is plentiful. Ookpik perched on a large boulder from where he could watch the busy scene. But everyone was much too occupied to take any notice of his presence. So Ookpik quietly flew back to the tent of Tulu-Ajuk, the old blind man, whose wisdom he respected. He found him sitting in the sun in front of the open tent. The old man did not hear Ookpik approach and was rather startled when spoken to.
What I want to ask you today is, where can I find the long-tusked ones? I want to talk with one of them and spend a little time telling me about themselves.
Tugaluk. Well, I remember them. You will find them in large numbers in a deep, sheltered inlet far to the north of the great island. There, for as long as I can remember, they have found peace and suitable conditions for their young ones to grow strong.
Are there any other animals or birds there, ones that I have not yet met?
Yes, there are great numbers of geese close to where Tugaluk spends the summer months. They should have quite a story to tell you. But you must not delay your departure. The season there is much further advanced where you will find the long-tusked ones.
Ookpik thanked the old man, promising to return soon for a much longer chat about many things. For some time, Ookpik had been curious about the narwhal, which he had seen briefly swimming by when Agvik, the great whale, had taken the little seal and he on a tour earlier in spring. Now he wanted to know more about this mammal that seemingly kept on endlessly swimming around in the cold Arctic water. So he flew to the north, to the inlet where he would find the narwhal. There were a number of floating ice pans, so Ookpik landed on one of them and waited in the hope that the narwhal would appear. He had not been there too long before a long, twisted ivory tusk, as long as a tall man, forced itself out of the water and came to rest on the ice. Ookpik walked over to where the young narwhal rested.
How are you? My name is Ookpik. I have seen you and your friends on one occasion, but you were intent on traveling, and I didn't have a chance to talk with you. Some people call you the sea unicorn. Do you feel that you are the one and only unicorn?
If you could tell me what a unicorn is, I might be able to answer that question.
Dear me, I have let myself in for something. The unicorn was a mythical animal, which means that it never existed. A long time ago, People thought there was such an animal. It was thought to be a land animal with a long tusk such as yours on its forehead. They were superstitious in those days. So when what must have been a narwhal tusk was found in a far-off country, this was thought to be proof that the unicorn really did exist. In fact, the ivory tusk was credited with magical powers to ward off illness. People kept small pieces of the ivory for that purpose.
Really? I hadn't realized we were that important. When did they come to know the truth about us?
It took a long time for the myth of the unicorn to die out.
You don't mean to tell me. Why, our tusks are simply an overgrown tooth, and there is nothing special about them. But I may be wrong.
But really, your tusks must be quite important, and they are unique. What a funny thing to think your tusks so long belong to a creature like a unicorn. What could be so strange as an animal so tall and lived in olden days with a tusk like yours? Narwhal. Narwhal. Narwhal.
They do provide a nice sense of balance, don't you think? They seem to help quite a bit in our swimming and shallow diving. You can also see that I rest quite easily by placing it on the ice while I talk to you.
I can see that. But aren't there any other uses?
Not that I know of. Other than we can also rest in the water by crossing the tusks across each other's heads while we relax a little from our swimming.
Why do you come so far north and concentrate in our area? Do you travel great distances?
Indeed we do. Many thousands of miles. But here we find the water contain all the rich feeding we and our young ones need.
Don't you find that such a long tusk often gets in the way? Don't you ever suffer an accident because of it?
Yes, quite frequently, Ookpik. You will no doubt see others who have had the misfortune to break a tusk. We don't use them against each other, since we aren't quarrelsome creatures. It just happens that we do get caught in some situations, often amongst ice, when part of the tusk has just got to go.
Where do you go from here? And why are you not more frequently seen at other times of the year?
When we come to these favored waters, there is a purpose in mind. It gives the young ones a good start in life. When they are old enough, we seek other parts of the oceans where we are seldom seen.
The young must be born in the water, are they not? They must breathe almost immediately. How do you teach them to do this?
They are born at sea, of course. We just nudge them to the surface, and they know by instinct to breathe.
The conversation seemed to be lagging, so Ookpik bid the sea unicorn goodbye. The large tusk slid back into the water, and the blue mottled body moved through the water, rising at regular intervals for the noisy intake of breath. In the distance, Ookpik could see flights of birds. There seemed to be much activity over a certain area, so he flew there to investigate. In the distance, Ookpik saw a dark area which aroused his curiosity, so he landed on a grass hummock for a closer look. To his surprise, a large number of geese were there, wading around in muddy, shallow water, and with their strong beaks were reducing everything to nothing more than mud and ooze. It would be impossible for Ookpik to get any closer, so he waited until one of the large birds came close enough so that he could attract its attention. At last, one of the geese came close enough to catch a glimpse of Ookpik. The large goose, slowly and in a most dignified way, came much closer. She proved at close quarters to be a most handsome bird, not a bit aggressive.
Dear me, what a mess you are all churning up over there. Excuse me for expressing my amazement. My name is Ookpik, and I am still trying to find out about all the birds and animals who share this North Country.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is NARWHAL. Welcome to our feeding grounds, at least to one of them.
Ah, so that is what you are up to.
Yes, in these bogs we find the most succulent feeding.
But aren't you destroying them for some time to come? There is a great deal of concern over this sort of thing.
Not at all, Ookpik. These are our traditional feeding areas. The scars heal and the grass grows again, and perhaps in 2 or more years we will be back here doing the same thing.
You are a large bird. I hadn't realized you were quite so big.
Yes, we are big by comparison with some of our smaller cousins. We are Canada geese, the largest of our species. Here also you may find snow geese and blue geese nesting quite close together. They are often mistaken for one another. Then there is the Ross's geese, the one with the knobbly beak. Really, many of them look so much alike that there doesn't seem to be any reason why they haven't got all mixed up by this time. But apparently they lead quite separate lives and never mix.
This is rather strange, isn't it? Are you quite sure they are from different species?
Quite sure. They are distinct species.
Have you now all raised your families? And are the young ones ready for the long flight to the south? It will be quite an experience for them.
Just then a great clamoring commenced amongst the geese. The calls echoed and re-echoed over the flat marsh area. The goose raised her head.
It is the first signals coming through. For a day or 2 we will linger, no longer, because the urge grows stronger by the hour. We are almost ready to fly south, to the warm, south-flowing rivers, where we spend the winter on the deltas, where there is no scarcity of food. So sorry that I can't tell you more about ourselves, but we are just like the other birds who love summer in the Northland and come back here every year.
With that, the goose slowly walked back to join the clamoring throng. The time was drawing near for their departure. Soon their long V formations would appear in the skies to warn people that another winter was on its way. Ookpik had found out all he wanted to know, so he set about looking for a perch. In the morning, he would return to the tent village.
This has been an adventure with Ookpik, the Arctic owl. The series was written by Alf Copeland, with music by Neil Chotham. The stories are played by members of Canada's National Theatre School, including Ookpik by Greg Wanless and The Storyteller by Ken Tomlin. Greg Wanless also played Tulu Adjuk. Attribution played the goose. Karen Chapman played the narwhal. The series was organized and directed by Les McLaughlin of the CBC's Northern Service. Sound engineers were Andre Laurier and Gilles Vaudeville. Produced in stereo by Alan Yates for Radio Canada International.